Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University on the Dice Tower.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Hollywood Races, game designed by Phil Vizcarro and published by Cosmo Duck Games and Daedalus Editions. We are using a prototype copy here of the game, and so the rules and components may not be final.
Let's get to the table.
Hollywood Races is a wild and wacky racing game for 2 to 6 players set in a Hollywood theme. Each player will take the role of 2 movie-inspired racers, and competing against each other, they will bash and crash their way through the track, trying to be the first player to have both of their races cross the finish line. The first player to achieve this will win the game. To set up the game, first set out your track, starting with the start-finish piece on the start side, and then laying out as many of the other board pieces as you'd like to create a track. These Colosseum boards have no special rules associated with them, while the illustrated boards do, and in these cases they should be laid in the direction of the arrow. Use as few or as many boards as you'd like, and leave space at the end to place the finish line once all the players are off the start. Each player takes one of the manager boards and the matching black coloured manager token. Now you'll set up your drivers. Choose a first player, and that player chooses their first driver from all of those available in the game. Place the driver card next to your manager board on this side, showing all of its special effects. Then take its car standee and place it onto any available space of the starting board, and take that driver's orange token and place it on the first available step of the turn order track. Go around the table clockwise, with each player choosing both a first driver and a second driver in this way, until all players have 2 drivers. Each player then takes 2 red cubes and 4 green cubes. The red cubes are placed on the maximum hit point value for each of the 2 drivers on their red tracks. The green cubes are used to track Effixium in the A and B columns. Effixium is gathered and spent during the game to activate A and B abilities on the player's cards, and so that's what's being tracked here. To start the game, each of your 2 drivers will have 3 Effixium, which you can spread as you wish between the A and B columns. For example, 2B and 1A, or 3A and no B. Shuffle up all of the prop cards into a stack, and then keep them and all of the other components, the untouchable tokens, crash tokens, and dice, nearby ready for use. There may be some additional setup steps depending on which board you've chosen to use, and you should refer to the rulebook for the board you're using in order to understand what these might be. Once any of those are done, you're ready to play. Hollywood Races is played in driver turns, according to the driver turn order. Since each player controls 2 drivers, that means that you'll be taking alternating turns with each of your drivers. On a driver's turn, that driver may take 2 actions, a move and a special effect. Both are optional, and these may be taken in either order. There are also several free actions, including playing cards or tokens, which the driver may take on a turn. Once you've finished taking your vehicle actions, you may then end up taking a board action, depending on which space you land on. These will have a range of positive and negative effects on your race. So now let's look at each of these steps in detail. First, we'll look at movement. On a driver's turn, a driver may move forward a number of spaces on the track up to its movement value, which is this number in the bottom left corner of the card. Here it's 5. Standard movement must be forward or diagonally forward along a solid line, not along a dotted line into one of these impact spaces. Standard movement is also blocked by the presence of another racer, and so moving forward 5 steps from here would involve going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is possible for your standard movement to be blocked entirely by other racers. To counteract this risk of being completely blocked, each driver has one of 4 assets represented by this icon, which helps them get out of these traffic jams. A driver with flight may fly over the top of other cars as well as use dotted lines while in flight, as long as they land on a space which is both empty and not an impact or fall space. The downside is that when flying, you miss out on any ground-based actions you would have activated by driving through a space, and more on that later. A vehicle with the sleigh asset may move over the top of other cars, but not other obstacles. They also have a bonus in their special effects action, which we'll come to later. A driver with the tank asset is always blocked by other drivers, but can go through impact spots freely, as long as they don't finish on one. And a driver with the ram asset may, once per movement, before, during, or after that movement, ram an adjacent car to an adjacent space, including down a dotted line to an impact space. The driver doing the ramming may then continue moving until all movement points are expired. A driver who is rammed onto an impact space loses 1 hit point, marked by moving its red cube down 1 step. If a rammer chooses to ram someone who has nowhere they can be moved to, then the victim loses 1 hit point. As you move across the board, you will come across spaces which grant you the game's 3 main resources: extra hit points in red, effusium in green, or props cards in the brown crate. Some of these spaces simply show the icon, and you pick up the bonus by moving onto or through that space. So here, for example, moving through all of those spaces would grant both of those bonuses. Other spaces will require you to stop and roll a die in order to gain the bonus, and this will be indicated by an adjoining icon or number in a white circle. Here, for example, you could move but would have to stop to roll a die and try to gain a prop. A driver using the flight asset ignores all of the icons that are passed over. Note as well, if an opponent rams you onto a bonus space which does not require a die roll, you gain that bonus. But if you're rammed onto a space which does require a die roll, you do not. When you gain hit points, you add them to your red bar, but cannot go above your starting hit points. When you gain Effixium, you choose to add it to either your A or B canister, and when you draw a prop card, draw from the top of the prop deck. If you draw a pink coloured card, this is resolved immediately and then discarded. If you draw a blue coloured card, then place it face up next to that driver, ready to be used at a later point in the race. You have a limit of 3 of these cards, and if you wish to draw another, must discard or play one before drawing the new one. The other action that you may come across when you're moving is a super jump, and as long as you have at least 1 movement point left, you will roll the die and be trying to meet or exceed the value printed on the space. If you do, you clear the jump and continue moving on the other side. If you fail, then your movement ends and you remain on the jump space ready to try again next turn. Be warned though that while you're on this space, you're at risk of being rammed into the hole by a player with the ram asset. And if this happens, you lose a hit point and then start your next turn on this board's return space. The other main action that you can take on your turn is to use a special effect, which is one of these effects on your card. You may do this either before or after you've taken your move, or during if you have the sleigh asset. There are 4 types of special effect: A, B, C, and passive. The passive special effects always apply. You don't have to spend an action to use this. The others all require your special effect action for the turn. If you wish to use an A effect, you must spend 2 Effixium from that driver's A column. Using a B effect costs 1 Effixium from that driver's B column, and using a C effect costs no Effixium, but still takes your special effect action for the turn. There are 2 other free actions which you may take on a driver's turn. The first is to spend your manager token for a once per game effect as printed on your manager board. Here, for example, you cancel the special effects for all other players for 1 turn, and there's a different effect for each manager. The other is for a racer to play 1 or more of its prop cards, discarding it to take its effect. You can play multiple cards per turn, but you can't play multiple copies of the same card per turn. And remember that these cards belong to the driver, not the player, and so the player's other driver can't use them. Once you've finished with your vehicle actions, check which board of the racetrack your driver is on, and whether or not that board has an end-of-turn board action associated with it. This won't apply to every board, and all of the individual rules are in the rulebook, but some of these will result in some extra dangers to your races that you'll have to manage. We'll touch on some of these towards the end of the video. An inevitable part of racing motor vehicles is crashing, and if your driver ever runs out of hit points, that driver has crashed. When this happens, take a crash token and lay your driver down on the space where you crashed. If you crashed on your own turn, your turn ends now. Next time it is that driver's turn, stand the driver's standee back up, flip the crash token over to the repair side, and restore your hit points to max. This driver otherwise misses this turn, but while the driver has a crash or repair token, it is immune to any other attacks from opponents. So it can't be rammed, it won't be attacked by the board, and it can't lose any hit points. On the subsequent turn, discard the repair token and then take your turn as normal. You're now open to being attacked once again. When a driver reaches or crosses the finish line, it has finished the race. Place it in its finishing position and remove its token from the turn order track. The first player to have both races cross the finish line wins the game. We're not going to take you through the detailed rules for every map in the game, but we're going to show you some of the key icons and the sorts of effects that you'll come across. The exclamation mark icon means that there is an effect that resolves at the end of your turn in the board actions phase, and usually these are linked to the danger spots showing this triangle icon. Here, for example, the board action is to roll a die and then resolve the effect as written in the rulebook for that number. Some boards show this icon, and this requires what's known as a countdown die. And when someone first entered this board, you would place one of the red dice showing the same number of pips as the number written here. The countdown die generally represents a dice rolling target for an action. Here, for example, you can try to take this shortcut by rolling equal or above the current countdown die. The countdown die may change up or down in number at different times while players are traversing this board. A board showing this icon is sensitive to noise, and in this case when you take an action which makes noise, it triggers a dinosaur attack. Noise can be triggered in two basic ways. By using an attack or a special effect which causes an opponent to lose one hit point, or by honking your horn, which you can do on any turn instead of either moving or using a special effect. The rules may also have some way of creating noise which is specific to this board. Finally, there are some boards showing this icon here, which means that the flight asset does not work here. Hollywood Races thrives on the chaos of having a lot of drivers trying to squeeze through a very small space on the board. To recreate this in a two-player game, you will add 3 neutral players to the game known as the Masterminds. Add any 3 unused cars to the board, and place their character cards face up near the board. You'll place them picture side up because their normal statistics do not apply. After each of your turns is completely finished, you will take a turn with one of the 3 Mastermind characters. The same Mastermind cannot be moved on consecutive turns. When moving, a Mastermind has up to 5 movement and the tank asset, meaning they may move over impact spaces. They all also have a C-type special effect, allowing them to attack an adjacent car for 1 hit point of damage. The Mastermind must both move and use its attack on its turn. In this way, you will be trying to move them into the path of and near your enemies so that they can attack your enemies, while keeping them away from yourself. A Mastermind has only 1 hit point, and when it crashes, it simply is unable to be used on the next player's turn. It misses that 1 turn before being righted and being available again. Masterminds don't interact with the board, they don't attack each other, and they cannot win the game, even if they finish first. They're simply there to fill up the track and make it harder for the human players to get their cars through to victory. And that's how to play Hollywood Races. We hope you enjoyed this video.
When we film this video, Hollywood Races is going to Kickstarter, so we will put the link in the description below when it is live so you can check it out. If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please leave them in the comments section below.
See you next time!